But she was a very feisty wee woman. One F didn't meet the other. She was very much at the core of a number of fairly seismic developments, and for example the campaign to demolish Divis. It was the longest running campaign. When I was a teenager, we actually protested against the building of Divis and we opposed it. I think the campaign must have went on for 30 years. It was the only successful housing demolition campaign of its magnitude under the Thatcher regime. And Sally was at the core. She was at the core of Divis Development Committee. Did a lot of youth work. She brought her own sort of character to that. She was a mother and later a grandmother. And she's very likeable. You know, she could be sharp-tongued, and she didn't stand on ceremony. And she met the great and the good. You know, I was at many meetings with her over the years with all sorts of highfalutin people. And she put the case for the people of that community, and she loved bingo. She just very, very much a part of all up and down for all of that time. Her son Thomas was shot to death in Milltown Cemetery during the attacks on the funerals of the volunteers who were killed at Gibraltar. And again, she campaigned for the truth about that and for evidence or information about what most of us suspect, and which later I think Stone confirmed was collusion with British Crown forces. And she was really, really hurt by Thomas's death, and hugely dedicated then to trying to keep his memory alive and get the truth of what occurred. So I'll miss her. I went to see her, I'm glad to say, at Easter. And my wife Kat was in with her just the Friday, and Sally phoned her on the Saturday and then died the next morning. So she'll be missed. She missed by our family especially, and by people who come through that phase of struggle, which wasn't just about independence and unity, but was also about jobs and decent conditions and decent homes and decent houses and the esteem and dignity of our young people.
Well, I've known Sally a lifetime, and after I got out of prison in 1980, my family lived in Divis Flats as I did, after the hunger strike, I went back into Divis Flats to help organise Sinn Fein, and one of the key objectives of Sinn Fein in the area was the demolition of Divis Flats. I remember trying to join the local residents association, and at that stage they refused myself and our local Republican membership. They used to have their AGMs, and there used to be a number of people who were on the committee would have went to the AGMs, and Sally McErlean, another woman called Marie McCurk, used to go to complain about them doing nothing within Divis Flats. So I think it was 1982, Sally came on the Divis Residents Association at an AGM along with ourselves. But what few people know is that Sally was also on the committee of an alternative school in Divis Flats before that called Crazy Joe's. And it was a deal especially with young women who had been expelled from St. Louise's school, 12, 13, 14 years of age. And it was the first alternative school in Belfast that ended up getting taken to court by the education authorities. And at our time in the Residents Association, Sally, like everyone there, believed that the only way that you could deal with Divis Flats was through total demolition, and was very active in the campaign for the demolition of the flats. But her big passion at that time also was the youth of Divis and surrounding areas. She always believed very staunchly that they got bad press, and that there was nothing in Divis Flats to cater to their needs, and was primarily one of the main people who helped open the Divis Drop-In Centre. And it was unique because it became known as a centre for the unclubbable youth within the area. She also there was an organisation that still exists, they call it the Divis Joint Development Committee, and it was an umbrella group that took in all the committees within the flats. And at that stage, and what grew up in Divis was committees that catered for every level of life. And there was especially 37 Country Walk that was a canteen, but the canteen with the difference that sold cheap dinners, cheap food for local residents. And every day you'd have had pensioners, you'd have had young people would have been around to this empty flat that we had all turned into a canteen. She was a founding member of the West Belfast Parent Youth Support Group, the West Belfast Auto Project, and many other groups that were started up to cater and try to deal with some of the serious social difficulties and problems there were with young people within the area. She always believed in giving people a second chance. She made a name along with a number of other women in arguing with government at that time, which was direct rule, and statutory authorities who completely neglected and ignored. And she had always a very heavy voice for those that would deny resources or finance for the areas. Sally McErlean will be a bad loss, not only to her family, but to the local community. People who live in that area and elsewhere who came from Divis can sit back and look, feel safe in the satisfaction that it was people like Sally McErlean who had the flats demolished and had decent houses built for people of that area and for those who moved throughout West Belfast.